Welcome to another episode of the Game Theory Podcast. This is episode 77. 77. We are old. We're an old podcast.
We're old media. We're old media.
Wow, the lamestream media. This week we're kind of short on time. I'm going to go do a Spartan race coming up, and I have to get up pretty early tomorrow and take off. So we're going to skip the news and reviews section. Hope you guys are cool with that. So about 2/3 of our audience won't like that, but the other third will be like, whatever, I didn't notice. So.
Right. So, ironically enough, we are short on time on the time travel episode.
Wish we could rewind time.
Like
right?
so many video game characters can.
Yeah. So time travel. This is your idea. So what's this all about? Why is this interesting?
All right. Well, this was sparked from a listener email we got from Skaterade69 talking about Majora's Mask, and I realized there's a lot of games that use time travel as a major plot device or game mechanic. So, and time travel is just weird anyway, with all the quantum physics and timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly things that I don't understand.
Yeah.
So I thought it'd be fun just to talk about, from a story perspective, why time travel causes problems, which video games we like that do time travel, and then just random timey things to talk about. And there's actually some neuroscience involved here too, so that'll bring you in on some level.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
So
I'd be all down for that. Oh, nowadays time is like our most valuable resource because like when we were younger, I remember being bored. That was like a thing that happened. But now, with
boredom
the
is a
internet-
luxury of the young.
Oh, and even now, now they have little cell phones and stuff. I saw an article that said, "Is 8 years old too young to give your child a cell phone?" And I was like, "What? Yes, what?" But apparently, it's like a thing. So in their downtime, they're just like watching YouTube videos and whatever.
I think I saw more children with smartphones in Korea. It just blew my mind. There's all these phones are bigger than their faces, just walking around, Samsunging it up.
That's crazy. So they're like never bored. I mean, you could be kind of bored. You're like, oh, I checked like a bunch of sites, but you can always go to like Reddit or like Stumble Upon or something where you can just.
Or you can always the senior lounge at my high school. There's all these seniors there playing this like Frogger game. It's called like Crossy Roads. There's hopping frogs across the thing for losing hours at a time, and then my pity for them. They're like, oh, I've got so many papers due. I'm like, yeah, but you also have logged hundreds of hours into that game on your phone, so I don't know if I should really feel bad for you.
Yeah. So time, man, it's the real deal. I think I don't know. Now it's like with like viral marketing how it is now. It kind of changed around the time when like whenever I was going to school for marketing, people thought that like there was a whole different like idea of marketing. It was more like traditional of like how to get your billboards up, how to like get your product placement right, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Product, pricing, and placement. Those are the 3 P's of marketing when I went to school. But now it's like it's based on this whole new idea of like guerrilla marketing, where it's like everything's free. So like you just want to people's time is the most precious resource. Watch this short video, share this short video, do something, and we've done everything for you up to the last step kind of thing.
Yeah,
so.
It's like sound bites and just very short attention spans, and people are always busy, and there's something else they could be doing. It's crazy. By the way, for the people listening at home, we invite you to join in a drinking game. Whenever one of us says the word time, take a drink. Don't do it if you are in need of waking up anytime soon, because we're going to talk about time a lot, and that's a drink.
There you go. I should have gotten a drink, but I didn't.
Well, that's hardly fair.
Yep.
All right. So, as far as video games, I put together a list of my top 5 games that use time travel as a either a plot device or some kind of game mechanic. Not just there's some great games that use time travel like towards the end of the game, like Earthbound or BioShock Infinite. But I'm specifically looking at games where time travel is a major recurring thing.
Okay.
And also, I limited it to games that I've played because there's some great ones out there that I haven't played that involve time travel.
Oh, have you ever played? Wait, actually, yeah. Have you played the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one.
That one was really fun. I feel like that was kind of a game changer. Yeah. There's also another Prince of Persia that kind of does something like that. No, it doesn't rewind time. Never mind. But yeah, that was cool because it takes away it. That's one mechanic of like being able to rewind time. Took away the necessity of save files. It took away everything. It was incredible.
Yeah, and it really gave you a chance to make mistakes and learn from them.
Mm.
Well, the number 5 game on my list is Braid.
Oh yeah, that game is hard. It gets hard, legit.
Yeah, because the rules of time travel change as you go.
Hmm. Yeah, like what time travels and what doesn't? You mean?
Yeah, like eventually you can get to where time only moves when you're moving, or time you can actually rewind time and have your past self help you solve puzzles.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Forgot
there's a
about that.
lot of weird like time travel-y mechanics involved in that.
Yeah, and like it was like a time puzzle. That was the weirdest like part of it. That kind of fourth dimension. There's two-dimensional puzzles, three-dimensional puzzles that you're used to. You play Zelda games, three-dimensional
Yeah.
puzzles, no big deal. And that probably took some. I guess I can't remember, but I'm sure that took some thinking. But now with this, oh my god! Like I would sit there sometimes, try a couple things, then stop and have to think. For
Yeah,
a
you
while.
had to think on a whole new level, like a fourth dimension.
Yeah, that was insanity. But fun game.
Yeah.
Weird game.
So number 4 on my list holds a special place in my heart. This is the game that whenever I'd walk by the old arcades, I'd hear its like theme song playing, and I'd just want to rock out because that's what the '90s were all about.
Wait, don't tell me then. Oh, Turtles of Time.
There it
Turtles
is.
of Time? Yes.
Turtles time, pizza power.
Wait, so why was this one not just like a simple like plot device?
Well, this one was not a major mechanic, but it was the entire game was about time travel. Every level was a different time zone. You start off in Manhattan, 3 a.m., and go all the way back to the Jurassic period / all the ancient periods thrown into one because there were dinosaurs from every period there. And then,
What was the point of that? I don't even remember like why we were traveling through time in that game.
yeah, Shredder flings you into a portal in the Technodrome to get rid of you. He tries to exile you in like time, and that doesn't stick. You just fight your way back. Apparently, if you punch enough ninjas, you actually travel forward in time several centuries. I didn't know if you knew that.
That's why ninjas are so dominant in their time because everybody just got teleported forward when they're successful in a ninja battle.
Exactly, and that's just one of those new weird things about quantum physics we're just discovering with string theory is that punching ninjas causes you to leap forward in time, and that's how you get back to the future.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Speaking of quantum mechanics, I'm so sick of hearing people talk about quantum theory and quantum mechanics and like they actually
people
understand
like
it.
Deepak Chopra talk about it, or like scientists talk about it.
Yeah, because like I read a little bit about it and I was like, oh, this just seems pretty easy. But then like the simple, because somebody's like, oh, here are the parameters, and you go, oh, okay, got it. But then I saw on Reddit like somebody was talking about it, and he's like, yeah, actual mathematician here. No mathematician actually likes quantum theory because that shit's hard and weird. And I was like, really? It's hilarious. And he's like, yeah, nobody really gets it. They hear it's like saying, oh, I understand biology. Water, cells. Like that's like saying that basically. And they're like, that's not it.
Yeah, quantum theory is that stuff that Einstein got on the verge of like figuring out, and then was just like, no, I quit. It doesn't. This is not. No.
Yeah.
He just got really depressed.
Ugh.
He's like, well, the math indicates this, but also what?
Yeah.
And it's probably the ninja punching theorem that really threw him.
I think that's what really got him off. Yeah.
It's counterintuitive,
Yeah. You think that would send you back in time.
Right. Where ninjas are more prolific.
Right. Exactly.
But you're not thinking about cyber ninjas and foot soldier robots, so it makes sense when you think about it.
Somehow. Okay. So number 4, Turtles in Time. Very cool.
Yep.
Game.
Number 3 we've talked about, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time. Just that whole like, oh, I missed a jump, rewind a few seconds, try it again mechanic, and then how they incorporate it both as a game mechanic but as a story element. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, it's pretty pervasive throughout the whole thing. That's the one where you started off in she gets there's a big hourglass full of sand or something, isn't that right?
Yeah.
And those
Sands
are
of Time.
That's Sands of Time. And those are the magical ones.
Didn't they make a movie out of that? Didn't Disney do one with Jake Gyllenhaal?
Yeah, I didn't see it. Wonder how that was. Did you see it?
Yeah, I remember not hating it, like for a video game movie, which I love video games, but they rarely make good movies. This one wasn't bad.
Fun fact: Jake Gyllenhaal is supposed to be the most in shape person in all of Hollywood, because apparently he like does Iron Man like every couple weekends or something. It's insane.
That's crazy because Chris Pratt went from like pudgy to quite in shape pretty quickly between Parks and Rec and Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, but I mean, like, was his cardio good? Like, who knows?
Who knows? All I know is, abs.
I usually just ask him. Like, whenever I see a famous Hollywood person, I'm just like, "How's your cardio?" Though, nice movie, but
How
how's your
far
cardio?
can you run before you get sweaty? Is what I'm really concerned
Yeah.
about.
Vigorous activity? How's that work for you? But Jake Gyllenhaal, pretty good. I'll go check that out. I liked the game. It was the first, honestly, it was the first Prince of Persia I actually liked. The other ones I played, and I was like,
You
meh.
like the old DOS one?
No, I hated it. It was brutal.
It's so brutal.
Oh, and oh god, talk about mechanics. It was horrible. Like you jump and you're like, come on, grab the fucking ledge, and you walk forward again. You jump, you're like, grab the ledge. Oh, I hated it. Or you'd be running for something and you had to stop and then press down, so he'd turn around and like let himself down. I hated it. Like, it was brutal. It was like the Ninja Gaiden of DOS games.
Yeah.
Brutal.
It was the Ninja Gaiden of Prince of Persia's.
Has anybody beaten it? Does anybody know how it ends? I've never beaten it.
I don't even know what the first dungeon ends like. I just got spiked a lot and also fell in quicksand, it feels like. Quicksand was so ubiquitous in the early 90s in
Yeah.
video games. Like, it's not even a real thing.
Yeah, dude. I think there was an NPR on that, wasn't there?
I don't know. Was
I
there?
think it was talking about. Yeah, I was talking about this quicksand craze that happened.
Yeah, basically, for those of you who didn't hear the episode about on NPR, quicksand was a really easy special effect to do when people were doing silent movies and they finally figured out, like, oh, there's different ways to kill people. Quicksand was a pretty good way to do that because it was just a really cheap way to go about. But there's no such thing as quicksand. It's just something Hollywood made up to have a cheap special effect. And then they eventually figured out it wasn't real and they stopped doing it. But the video game industry just picked it up and like, oh yeah, quicksand, that's a thing, right? I remember growing up with movies with quicksand in them. Lawrence of Arabia, why not? Let's do some quicksand.
So weird, man. I wonder if the whole time, like, the Middle East was like, what in the actual fuck? Like, because where do you get this stuff?
They're like, are you thinking of the La Brea tar pits? We're like, no, it's sand that eats you. That's a thing.
Yeah.
We saw it on a movie and many video games.
And that's where all the rodents of unusual size live.
In the fire swamps, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great. So that's my number 3. My number 2, this one was hard because a lot of games in this franchise deal with time travel, but I went with Majora's Mask. Legend of
really?
Zelda.
Yeah. That was a big part of it.
Yeah, so like I was gonna go Ocarina of Time because there's that whole time travel element there. But Majora's Mask is like a really messed up Groundhog's Day, where you just you relive the same 3 days over and over again, and you just through trial and error figure out how to like master the world around you and like make everyone's lives better. And remember how Bill Murray kind of becomes a god at the end of Groundhog's Day because he's lived that day so much? Like that's kind of how you feel at the end of Majora's Mask, because you're like, okay, this is gonna happen now. This is gonna happen. I'm gonna go do this. Gonna do this. You're just like on the ball because you've lived those 3 days so many times.
Oh god, I hated that game. Like I didn't actually. I enjoyed it somewhat at the time, but then my little sister played through it, and like I had to relive the nightmare, and I was like, no, I hate this. Like standing around, like just leaving your controller on the ground, like just to wait for a certain time was weird.
Yep. So you gotta play the Ocarina song. Speed up time.
Yeah.
And all right. So my number 1 game dealing with time travel should come as no surprise to anyone. It would be heresy if I didn't have it as my number 1. You can probably guess what it is.
Chrono Trigger.
There it is.
Nice.
Chrono Trigger. This is a game where not only was it an important mechanic, like you could go to the past and alter things in the future. There was even a way, there were these sealed chests, and you couldn't open them until you like charged up a pendant. But they always had really good things in them. But you could go back in time and like supercharge the chest, and then go into the future and open them up, and there'll be better things in them. Then you could go back in time and get the things from the chest again, so you get both versions of the item, and it doesn't create a paradox somehow.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Gosh, yeah.
It's like the red mail and the red. Yeah, it was so good. And I don't know. What more can we say about Chrono Trigger that hasn't already been said?
I like the idea that it's apocalyptic, like like it's this, and it's the same sort of thing on Majora's Mask. It's like you've got this time before the moon crashes into the Earth, right? Or into Hyrule, not Earth. And then here it's like Lavos is coming at 20,000 AD or whatever it was. Yeah. And your job is to stop that. I think that's pretty cool. I love the idea of like it's sort of like a Quentin Tarantino where it shows the end and then comes back, and then you're like the whole time you're hoping for that. You're like, oh, somehow they gotta stop this. Somehow they gotta get out of this. But
Yeah, there's some kind of existential like, oh no. It's
yeah,
just like when was it Luca says like, so this is the way the world ends, and you're like, oh shit, that's the way the
yeah,
world ends. And it really brings up the idea of time travel that people don't talk about very much, and that's going into the future is a leap of faith because you don't know what's going to be there or if there's even going to be anything there.
yeah. And going to the past can be a leap of faith. I don't know if you ever saw the Louis C.K. thing, where he was like, he's like, what time travel and all this obsession of like going to the past, that's purely a white thing. If you're a person of color, there's no way you're getting into a time travel thing because you got it as good as you're gonna get it that you've had it in the past right now.
Yeah.
With time travel, you'd be like, you'd step out and they're like, I own you now, and like, like shit, I gotta get out of here.
That's one of my best tricks for telling someone's political affiliation. I'll ask them if they could time travel to any place and live there, would they rather go somewhere in the past or somewhere in the future? And people who are conservative tend to say somewhere in the past because they idealize like the good old days, like the Leave It to Beaver times when women knew their place and white people had way more rights than they do now because of all these colored folks taking all our jobs.
Yeah.
And they kind of create this utopia in the past, like Eden, like this idea of like things were great, this Camelot era where things were great and then they fell apart, and we have to get back to that point. Yeah. And then the future people are just like, I don't know, somewhere in the future things seem to be getting better, and so these tend to be more like liberal-leaning people because they're trying to like create a fictional utopia in the future instead of the past.
No, speaking of utopia, this is not going to make you happy. Whenever they found the most happy countries, Canada was in the top 10.
Yeah, I saw that. But you
Top
know what?
5, maybe.
I'm going to assume that was self-report because Canadians are really smug about how great Canada is.
I don't know, I've never been. I'd like to visit sometime. Maybe practice a little French.
Bundle up.
Québécois.
It's freaking cold.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
So, yeah, time travel, the knowing when the future is going to end, it's really crazy. And speaking of the perils of time travel, did you see that video where the guy like wants to go back to the 90s so he can play with Pogs and watch like Nick
Yeah.
Jr. again? And
Yeah. Oh my God.
there's
Hold
the
on.
limit we don't always think about with time travel.
I need to pull up that link. Hold on. I'll just make a note so that we can put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
That thing is hilarious. He gets there and he's like, "Hey, welcome to the '90s! Like, this is so sweet. Let's see."
Yeah, like electric guitar. He's got hammer pants.
Yeah. And there's like all those posters of like Britney Spears and stuff up and Ninja Turtles. Awesome. And he's like, "Yeah." But now that you're here, it's up to you to stop 2011 or 2000.
To stop 9/11.
Yeah, 9/11. 9/11. And he's like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "That's right. You're the only existing human who knows it's coming. You can save the life of thousands." He's like,
Yeah.
It keeps rocking out. He's like, "Stop."
Like, okay, I'll call the airports. They're not going to believe you. You're going to have to hijack a plane and put them on high alert.
So I have to do
history
a
will remember you as a monster. You'll go to jail forever.
Woo, damn. But later we can play with silly string or whatever.
Yo-yos.
Oh man. So I have to pull a Mach 9/11 to stop 9/11. That's right. It just sucks. Oh man. But yeah, time travel. What?
Yeah, time travel introduces all kinds of crazy problems too. Like beyond the grandfather paradox. You're familiar with that, right? The grandfather paradox?
Mm-mm.
It's basically the plot for Back to the Future. Like if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, then you stop existing, which means you never went back in time and killed your grandfather. And
I've heard. So I was in philosophy, so these are not scientists, but
Mhm.
I remember we talked about different ideas of time travel, and one had to do with like a multiverse, right? So like you're actually
Right.
going back in time, and they've done this in like a couple cartoons too. I saw them, they did it in X-Men, where it was like an alternate universe. You're actually opening a portal where time started, or the universe started a little later. Because there's infinite possibilities, right? So this
that's
one's
a popular one. Star Trek reboot did that too, and
Really?
X-Men: Days of Future Past.
X-Men. It did.
Yeah, did you see Days of Future Past?
Yeah.
It's like it was like this future where the Sentinels had just wrecked everything.
Right.
And then they go back and they create like an alternate reality past by changing things, and then everything changes because of that. They basically unwrote X-Men 3.
I thought they just went back in time. They didn't?
No, they did, but doing that created a new reality.
Oh yeah, but I meant like so this idea of multiple universes. So there's a
Yeah,
universe where David's
but whenever
actually
you do
smart.
that, like I don't know, maybe this is just headcanon, but to me, like that creates a new branch of the timeline.
Yeah, okay. But what I was saying was that this is like, let's say you go back in time rather than going back and affecting you. Some people say that you go, or in philosophy was one of the things we said, you go to an just to a different universe where almost everything's the same, or everything is the same except that the Big Bang
Oh,
happened literally, 30 years later, if you want to go back 30 years. And so
okay.
they're saying like, well, you can do whatever you want there. You can kill your mom, you could shoot your dad, nothing matters. It's just a playground. And so they say, maybe that's why we haven't had time travelers, because someday, scientists are like, oh yeah, time travel could be a thing, astrophysicists and whatnot, or yeah, physicists, astrophysicists.
So from a storytelling perspective, my biggest gripe with time travel is it ruins everything unless you specifically write the movie about time travel. Like Back to the Future is a great movie, despite the fact that it's kind of racist in that every cool thing a black person did was actually secretly inspired by a white guy who traveled back in time and gave them that idea. It's like the
Yeah,
invention of rock and roll or that guy
yeah,
becoming the mayor. It's just like, oh, that was actually a white guy who made that happen.
that's pretty shitty.
But I'm talking movies where time travel is thrown as an afterthought. I'm looking at you, Harry Potter. When they put that little time twister thing in there, I don't know if you've seen Harry Potter.
No, I'm not. I don't give a shit. No, I
All
didn't see
right.
the last two.
I haven't seen the last two either, but one of the earlier ones, there's a time twister where you pick it up and you twist it, and every time you twist it, it puts you back in time like a day or something.
Oh, okay.
What the fuck? Why is Dumbledore still dead?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, do you not care about your mentor, Harry? You've got a thing, like, you never lost it. Just twist it back, go save him, or twist it back further, kill Snape as a baby, like, or even no nose guy. What's his name?
Oh yeah.
Voldemort.
Yeah.
Kill Voldemort. No, nothing has any weight when you have a time travel device you can just use without repercussions.
She didn't think anything through. Like when in the beginning, they were like the name which cannot be spoken, and I was like, shit, what's this all about? Because I didn't read the books, I just watched the film. And then and I was like, this guy must be a badass, because you'll be like, hey, Sauron, and no one cares, right? And he's a badass. But this guy, like, I was like, what's he all about? But by the end, everyone's talking about it. They're like, yeah, Voldemort, man, it's crazy. He was here the other day, and I'm like, did they not? Was that just not a thing? Did you just decide to undo that because it was annoying to not have people say his
Yeah,
name?
and it wasn't even original. Like every Dark Lord is like you cannot say his name out loud. Like the
Yeah.
Shaitan from Wheel of Time, or Sauron, the great example. They were like at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, are like, we must not say the enemy's name, for it will bring his gaze upon us.
Yeah, speak it here. Oh yeah, that's right. It was Melkor. Who's the super bad? Like Sauron's
Morgoth.
just Morgoth. Yeah, he had another name too before. Remember, like Morgoth was his name whenever the first age came, but before that, in like this Silmarillion, he had a different name. I can't remember what I think it was Melkor.
I
Anyway,
think it was probably George Lucas.
yeah, the ultimate evil. He just like mouth breathing somewhere on a throne.
Nah.
No,
Parsecs.
oh man, oh J.J. Abrams. Like people are nervous about that, but I'm like, dude, he's got to do a better job than George Lucas. It doesn't matter. Like
I
I'm a
don't know.
huge Star Wars fan. But,
People are so nervous, and I'm like, guys, what happened to Marvel when Disney bought them? Nothing but awesome. Just settle down.
yeah, they're gonna
But,
get something good to
yeah.
But time travel. Wait, how are we talking? I remember we were talking about the alternate universes. Now we're talking about
Yeah, I'm gonna bring up some
how it
weird
messes-
things about time travel, like some weird kind of sciencey things about time travel that are also you can kind of like let me know how if you know about these studies or about the neuroscience behind it.
Oh, okay.
Specifically, this one, we may not live in the present.
What?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, because of we're never experiencing the present because of it.
your
Takes,
life's more like a delayed broadcast than a live feed because your brain's constantly editing and kind of like feeding it to you a little bit after it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Not much. It's like 80 milliseconds. But there are these neuroscientists that came up with some weird experiments to kind of prove that this difference kind of changes your perspective of cause and effect. So in this one experiment, they had these volunteers, and they were told to press a button that would cause a light to flash with a short delay. And after 10 or so tries, the volunteers were beginning to see the flash immediately after they pressed the button. Their brains had gotten used to the delay and just decided to edit it out, which is apparently a thing that your brain can do.
Wow.
you're like, oh, there's a delay. That sucks. We just won't have it anymore. But that's not even the weird part. Like the scientists removed the delay. Then the volunteers reported seeing the flash before they pressed the button. So their brains trying to reconstruct the events messed up and switched the order. So they were seeing the consequence first and the action second.
Whoa. No, I
Yeah,
hadn't heard of that.
yeah, it's kind of works on the same principle as this. Like right now, touch your nose and your toe at the same time.
Wait, are you fucking with me? I'll do it.
Yeah,
Okay,
do
so
it.
I am. All right.
And like the idea is that like you should feel your nose first because the sensory signal doesn't have to travel as long before reaching the brain, and your toe is like way at the other end of your body. The physical distance a message has to travel is like much longer from one to the other, but you
Yeah.
feel them both at the same time. And there's a neuroscientist named David Eagleman. I don't know if you've read his papers, but
Uh-uh.
he says that your brain's always trying to synchronize the sensory information that it gets from your body in a way that will make sense to you, but you can only do that by pushing your consciousness slightly into the past, like when a radio station has that 5-second delay in case someone curses on the air.
Hmm.
And so basically, another weird thing like about that, if you take it to its logical conclusion, is like the taller you are, the longer it takes for information to travel through your body, and so you live just like a couple milliseconds further in the past than like a short person.
I guess so. Like, although your sensory information probably wouldn't be any slower.
Yeah.
From your eyes, nose, and mouth, at least.
But and again, that's just perception of time. It's not like time itself. But time itself actually gets weird too. So like the second weird thing is you probably heard of this experiment. They've got those atomic clocks now, right?
Mhm.
And there's this whole like time dilation effect. So the closer you are to the ground, the more you're affected by Earth's gravity, and Earth's gravity affects time in a weird way. And so time slows down when there's more gravity. It's why black holes get so weird.
Mm.
But the higher you get up, gravity's pull weakens and time speeds up. And this was just kind of like theoretical at first until we started getting these like atomic clocks that could actually tell the difference.
Hmm.
And the weird thing is they actually planned for this. GPS equipment?
Yeah.
There's a clock inside those satellites, and it runs about 38 microseconds per day faster than the clocks on Earth do.
Huh.
And so they actually have a computer that's constantly like adjusting everything to make up for that difference. Otherwise, like after a day, it'd be about 10 kilometers off the whole system, and just keep
Wow.
getting worse from there.
What the hell? That's so weird.
Yeah, it's just because gravity really like the stronger the gravitational force, the slower time goes. And so the closer you are to Earth, the more gravity's pulling on you, even though it's so imperceptible we can't tell.
I remember the space-time continuum thing was linked in physics. He told me we were explained to this, and I don't remember why, but this still sticks with me. He said the reason why you can't go past light speed is because you'd have infinite mass. And I was like, what? And he goes, yeah, like as you get closer and closer to light speed, you gain mass. If I remember right, and I can't remember how he explained that because I was like, what? And so he went through this whole spiel about, I guess it's Einstein's theory of, general relativity, space-time continuum. That's why they say space-time continuum. It's all one. They're like hand in hand. But that's just freaking weird, man. Like,
yeah, it's really counterintuitive. And again, we're not ultra-crepidarians, so if we're getting this wrong, let us know. We're being ultra-crepidarians. We're not physicists.
oh, have you ever read Orson Scott Card's books?
Yeah, he's a Mormon sci-fi guy.
Yeah, and as it turns out, he's kind of a bigot, but that's unfortunate because I really like this stuff. But,
Yeah, Ender's Game.
Yeah,
That was one of the big things on Ender's Game. Like he was essentially immortal because he was always traveling like next to the speed of light, and so everyone else just back home just aged and died, and he just kind of stayed the same age.
Oh, that was Xenocide, right? The second one. I think
Yeah,
that was
like after he left the academy.
Yeah, and he was driving, like he'd fly somewhere and fly back, and then they'd be like his sister would be super old or something, or he'd be talking to his grandson. It was weird.
Which is weird when you look at that in the Star Wars universe, because when they go into warp speed, like the hyperdrive stuff,
yeah,
like that should slow down time for everybody else, or it should slow down time for him, and time should keep going for everybody else. So like Han Solo, when he makes the Kessel Run, when he came back, like the whole war should have been over.
Yeah.
Like, unless that war just lasted like 40 years.
What, you've been gone 12 parsecs? Jesus. Yeah.
Fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy, and by fastest I mean mass and energy.
Yeah, I don't even like to think about that stuff. I saw someone talk about Star Trek versus Star Wars hyperspace, and it was like some, I guess these physicians, no, physics
Physicists.
Physicists. Thank you. What the hell is wrong with my head?
Just
Physicists.
wanted
They
to see if you
were.
could find it eventually.
It was the article was sensational. You know, the headline. It was just like, which one's more. Which one's closer, Star Trek or Star Wars? And it turns out Star Trek. You know, they were like, yeah, it's this bubble that you cut around yourself, and you know just push it through the space-time continuum, and you pop up there. But if you do that, then it's like Ender's Game, you know, where you know you're super young and everyone else is super old because space and time was normal there. But,
Yeah, and that whole Einstein thing, where the faster you go, the slower time moves for you. That was on Interstellar too. It was a major plot point, but they've actually tested that too. They put an atomic clock on a plane, and after a 50-hour, 800-kilometer trip, it was missing about 230 nanoseconds
wow.
from the ones that are on the ground. So like people experience time differently depending on how fast they're going. And again, this isn't really that big of a deal right now, but if we ever do get to the point where we can get really, really fast, like approaching the speed of light, that's like a huge deal.
What the hell, man? I don't know. I don't want to think about all that. It makes me sad. I thought you were gonna say time. I thought you were gonna say that new movie, that Life is Strange game that you were playing. I thought you were gonna put that in your top 5.
Yeah, no, it will get there. I didn't feel right putting it there because I've only played the first episode.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking of games that I've beaten, but it definitely looks like a game because it's got that same Prince of Persia mechanic where you can just rewind things,
Yeah.
and so it's pretty cool.
That is weird though, because like to do that, how would you possibly why wouldn't you rewind as well? You know what I mean? Including hitting that button to rewind time or whatever device you're using.
Yeah, so it's like something that's not affecting you, but it's affecting the rest of time. It's weird.
Yeah, and which doesn't make sense because like if you hit it, I mean, do your shoes get older? You know, or like is that part of the bubble? Like, what if you stepped on grass? Does the grass underneath like wilt beneath your feet?
Well, that's the other weird thing about time travel is like, let's say like Back to the Future, Marty McFly. Let's say he goes back and spends a couple weeks, fixing his, messing things up and fixing them again. Then he comes back to the exact moment where he left. He's a couple weeks older than he was when he left. He basically just took a couple years off his life.
Yeah.
So like, if you go back and spend 20 years in the past and come back, you're now 20 years older in 2011 or whatever year you left.
Right.
You're basically like spending your years elsewhere and then getting older in the present.
Yeah, and all your friends are still the same age. That'd be weird, dude. I'm like, hey, David, I'm fucking 50 years old or something.
What happened? I went on the Crusades, and
why would you go there? That's the worst. I mean, I guess if you're a white person that could pass as a Christian, you'll be fine.
It's still probably the worst. It didn't seem like a fun time to be anybody. But let's just say you got stranded in time, as the Ninja Turtles did. You were fighting your way back to the present.
Yeah.
So Einstein said that events appear simultaneous to a person in motion may not look simultaneous to someone who's standing still. So the implication of that, like reality may actually be like a bunch of people walking around in slightly different timelines that sometimes sync up or intersect depending on their conditions.
Yeah, I remember this. This had to do with yeah, like that's why it's relative, because like relative to like if you're standing here and you see someone fly overhead, how did that work?
Yeah, like they feel like they're moving at like 1 second is the same as the 1 second you're feeling, but you guys are experiencing time at different rates.
Yeah, shoot, I can't remember all that stuff, man. That sucks.
I know. This is our Ultra Crepidarian episode.
It is. We're physicists. We didn't even know I didn't even know how to say that. I was saying physicians.
The physicians. We are pediatrists. We are podiatrists. Yes. But there was a neuroscientist, Warren Meck, and he did these studies to prove that brain time is relative. So he trained these lab rats, who are always right, as we know, to push a small lever after a certain period of time, and they found out the exact same interval could be timed differently depending on the rat's conditions. That means that 10 seconds can sometimes seem like 30 seconds, and 30 seconds can sometimes feel like 90 seconds, and so on, depending on what condition the rat was in when they did it. Which you don't really like. That happens to us, right? Like if someone's talking to you at like a party and they're telling you about like, oh, so my character is level 12 and he's got like a plus 12 Vorpal sword and it feels like more than 5 minutes have passed, but it's just been 5 minutes according to your watch.
Yeah.
But Mech explains this by saying there's not like one single part of our brain that's a clock, like that keeps track of time for us, that measures time. He says there's multiple brain clocks running at different speeds. So like the guy in the train, the guy on the guy who's listening to you talk about his character, like everybody has like all these different parts of your brain, like you're on a date part of your brain, and the you're having sex part of your brain, and the you're really bored in class part of your brain. These are all just different parts of your brain that are all tracking time at different rates, and or different parts of your head or whatever. And then your brain just decides which one to believe at any given time.
Oh, huh. I didn't know that.
This is Warren Meck's theory. I don't know like how.
He's a
He's a
neuroscientist?
neuroscientist, yeah. So
Okay, well,
it's from his experiments with rats, and we there are things that alter our perception of time, like
yeah.
when you came to Colorado and you experiment with that, which is legal in Colorado.
Yeah.
How long did that feel like?
Oh man, that fucked me up. Apparently, there was other people there, and they were like, "Here, look at this clock." And I was like, how long has it been since, like whatever mark of time? Because they were like, remember from right here. And I was like, I don't know, 9, 10 minutes. And they showed me the clock, and it was 23 seconds. I lost my shit, man. Like, I was like, that's weird. That's really weird. Time dialysis.
Yeah, time dilation. It's
Actually, psychology. There's some people who look at that. There's this guy named funny name but cool researcher, Csikszentmihalyi, and he looks at something called flow. And flow is like, it's a stupid. I hate that. He needs a more scientific term, but whatever. It's his thing. It's like that point where, like, how like you're doing something, and all of a sudden, like, especially like work, sometimes you're kind of like, I don't want to be doing this, but then all of a sudden you like get to it, and you're like, yeah, and you're loving it, and then all of a sudden it stops, and you're like, whoa, it's been 2 hours, like.
right.
That is the experience that he looks at, and like the funny thing is how that correlates with like enjoy things that are in joyful. What the
Pleasure.
hell is wrong with my brain? Thank you today. Yeah, pleasurable. Because when as they say, like, whenever time flies when you're having fun, and then when you're miserable, it feels like you keep looking at the clock and you're like, ugh. Ugh, And I can attest to that. Whenever I run, sometimes I do sprints, to get more cardio, and so I'll do sprints and then jog and sprints and then jog. And whenever I'm like when I'm jogging, that time goes by so fast, and I'm like, oh, it's already 2 minutes, God. And then I've got a minute to sprint. So then I sprint, like, and during that time, like, by the sixth or seventh of those, you look down at your phone and you're like, nope, it's 30 seconds. That's good enough. Click. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
it feels like an hour.
Yeah, no, I noticed the same thing. I do those like alternating speed runs where you're like kind of jogging and then sprinting and jogging and then sprinting, and you
Yeah.
always feel like you're sprinting longer than you're jogging, but the opposite's true.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So like our perception changes like through drugs, like LSD can really make like a time dilation effect happen. Marijuana, lots of these like things were just like, wow, has it been like 12 years already? Because it feels like, wow, like everything just feels so much slower.
Hmm.
But also, remember when I said how gravity kind of wrecks time?
Yeah.
Black holes. The black hole, time basically stops when you get to the black hole, like to the event horizon.
Okay.
Like it just freezes. So like it's got this insane amount of gravity, right? Like in a black hole, that's why light can't escape it.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say like you're Star Fox, right? And your father is like getting pulled into a black hole because of probably Peppy like screwed something up. And you're a little kid, and you're watching your father like drift away in a broken R-wing towards this black hole. And like to you, he starts to float, and then the closer he gets to the black hole, he starts to slow down. And when he gets to the event horizon, he just freezes in place. And to him, he's still floating, and he's probably dead because it's a black hole. But your perception of him is just like time stopped.
That's weird. In the movies or in a game, it shows the person like lengthens out, like getting then like sucked into the hole.
Yeah, because it's like the size of a tennis ball. You're just getting like pulled into it. But yeah. So here's the weird thing about time. It's like the weirdest thing I found out. And again, like correct me if I'm wrong, because I just did a very surface level of research on time. But apparently, scientists they make these formulas to find out how the universe works using probabilities. But the problem is if you assume that space-time is infinite, then everything has an equal probability of happening. Like the mail is late, or the sun went supernova and wiped us off. Everything's equally probable because it's an infinite timeline.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't work. And so because that doesn't work and that kind of messes up all the formulas, some scientists have decided that time is not infinite.
What do you mean? Like there was a decimal point in the past?
Yeah, just basically that instead of time and space going on forever, time and space have an end. And in 4 out of 5 of the calculated scenarios they worked on, they said time is most likely to end in about 3.3 to 3.7 billion years.
What the heck? How do they? I don't understand that. That's insane. What kind of math?
Yeah. But in the fifth scenario, time could end before we finish this podcast.
Yeah. It
So
kind of
they
reminds me
basically,
of that talk about how like the most likely scenario is that we're inside of a machine or whatever.
yeah, the simulation.
What episode is that? I don't remember.
But so basically, like they compare time to like a pocket watch, and one day it's just gonna stop ticking, and we won't even see it coming. So things slow down and eventually just stop.
That's depressing as shit.
Or it's awesome. Like the whole thing will just be like Zach Morris, like time out,
And
and
time
then
out.
we're all
Yeah.
just frozen in place forever and ever.
Well, I
Depressing,
don't.
but,
I don't want
or
a game like that.
inspiring, because like tomorrow time might just stop forever. So get your go live your dreams, fellas,
Yeah, it's like
ladies.
existentialism.
Yeah,
It's like, yeah, you're gonna die, so life's all about, and they're like, and there's no meaning, so life's all about those epic moments. Go create epic moments.
yeah, create meaning. So that's the weird stuff I found with just about an hour's worth of semi-research on the internet. But I have read, I went not read, I scanned most of those studies, and it's pretty crazy. It's pretty weird.
I don't even. I wonder how they do that. Okay, anyway, whatever. At this point, I started thinking about like ships, like because remember the time travel, or what was that called? Was that called Time Traveler? Remember that really old movie where there's a guy who sits in on the little like wonky, it looks like a fan ship, an airship or something, and he clicks the buttons, and they go in the past, and there's like Morlocks. Remember that?
Oh yeah, the Time Machine,
Time machine, not time travel.
based
Yeah,
on Orson Welles' book.
yeah, that was so weird. The show was cool though. But yeah, I started thinking about like ships and like what you'd have to do and like how you'd have to like figure out how to cut out time and then push into the future. I don't know. I don't know what I'm talking about now, so I should probably shut up. But I just started thinking about it.
Yeah, did you ever see Donnie Darko?
Yeah.
That's like a really interesting like time travel the rules for that there, where it's just like he created like this whole like almost like mythological construct around it, where there's like a guy who's like a fixed point where the universe kind of focuses on, and I don't know, it was really kind of an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, that is weird. I still don't know what to make of that movie. But anyway.
So, were there any time travel games I missed besides Life is Strange that you would have put on your list?
No, not really. I mean, t- I don't know. I feel like time travel is done poorly in a lot of games. I mean, like, you talked about Generations, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember freaking Fire Emblem Generations? Is that
Yeah,
right?
Fire Emblem
Don't they-
Awakening.
Isn't that what, like the kids come back in time or some nonsense?
Yeah, no, that was really good. That should have made my list. Forgot about that one.
Ha, sucker. I didn't even play that game. But you should let me borrow it. I'll totally keep track of it.
Yeah, will you find it and then mail it back to me when I ask for it?
Yep,
Great.
absolutely.
My learning history suggests otherwise, but I'm eternally optimistic.
Probably just that game that I can think of. Wasn't entirely. I'm sure there's listeners right now who are probably like screaming into their earbuds and like, obviously these games, but I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean, some of them I haven't played, like Ratchet and Crank had a time travel game, and Sly Cooper had like a Time Bandits game. I didn't have a PlayStation, so I missed all those.
And time travel allows you to kind of answer those like back in the day in like classic literature, the idea of fate and battling against it, especially like in Greco-Roman type writing.
Mm.
I think this allows you to answer that by like you go back and you try to like change fate, like change how things turn out. So I think it's a pretty epic like
Yeah.
cornerstone.
Although
if you want to tell a
sometimes
story.
a major motif in time travel is that you can't change fate. Like you go back and try, and then something else happens, and it just ends
Yeah.
up the same. Like remember, do you remember those old Dragonlance books where like Raceland and like
Yeah.
Caramon go back in time, and they're trying to like they explain time as like a river where you could like throw a rock up further up the stream, but it's not going to change the course of the river.
Yeah, yeah. The first time I was read about or was introduced to time travel was Ray Bradbury. Did you ever read his like he did a bunch of short stories. He did one about going like big game hunting got so big here in the future
Mm.
that eventually they said let's go back in time and hunt T-Rexes, the greatest prey of all time. And so they do, but the only way to make that work is they have to go back and they have a team of scientists identify a T-Rex that was going to die in a couple minutes anyway, and then they have to find that place and time, and then rewind or not rewind, but point back, shoot for the moment like 1 minute before that, and then the spaceship has to come in and it hovers over the ground, and then it like puts out kind of a red carpet, but it doesn't hit the ground, it hovers above it. And so it doesn't disturb anything. Then you walk through and you're in this entire suit, and then you shoot the T-Rex, and then it hits the ground, and then right where it was going to die anyway. But all of those controls still like something kind of goes wrong. But I'll let you. I don't want to ruin it for anyone. It was pretty cool. It was the first time that made me think about that. I was probably like, I don't know, 11 or something. My mom was a big Ray Bradbury fan, and she tried to make me read sophisticated stuff. I just wanted to read Snoopy, so.
Snoopy, really? That was always the one I skipped.
No, I'm kidding.
It's like Calvin and Hobbes
what I was reading,
Side, and I'm done with the funny papers.
Far Side, yeah, that was it. Far Side, and I liked Garfield too, to be honest. Love that guy.
He sure hates Mondays, right? Am I right?
I know. Now that I look back, I'm like, he's such a goober, man. But back in the day, I was just like, he's so smarmy. I love him. What's he gonna do next? Probably kick
He loves
Odie.
lasagna, and he hates Otis and hates Mondays.
And John, have you ever seen those comics called Garfield without Garfield in it?
Yeah, it's just Turner Arbuckle talking to himself.
Yeah, or like talking to a cat that doesn't talk back. It's fucking creepy. Because all they do is take out Garfield, and then you just see what was really going on in John's apartment. It's creepy.
He's definitely a serial killer. All
Yeah,
those
for
girls
sure.
he brings home, you never see him again.
That's true. That's true. Don't ruin this date for me, Garfield. What he's really saying is that don't creep her out, so she calls the cops, Garfield.
Great, yeah. So that's time travel. Just
Yep.
a broad overview. Just weird stuff about time, and some games we like that really did it right.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, so that pretty much wraps up this section. I guess we can move on to the feedback section.
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right, this is the feedback section, the portion where we're going to be talking about our interactions with the community. And we got an email, right?
Yes. This is from Lou, who says, "Hey guys, sorry about that last email. He sent us a blank one, so that's what that is. For some reason, it sent somehow, but let's just blame the alcohol. And here's the storm sessions. Ha ha. Can relate
Cool.
to that. You guys have an amazing podcast and love the psychological input as well as David's input with his knowledge. Ah, yes, my generic knowledge comes in handy. I pretty much blew through all your podcasts and usually can't wait for the next one. I have a question for Jeremiah about psychology. I started watching Lie to Me on Netflix and did some poor research on it due to my work schedule and was wondering his input on it. An email or quick mention on the next podcast would be amazing. From my understanding, it was based on Dr. Paul Ekman's research. I apologize for any grammar errors. Am I trying too hard? You guys are awesome. Keep up the awesome work. Louie, or Lou. People call him Lou. So, what do you think? You seen Lie to Me?
Yeah, actually, what was really cool is when I was an undergrad, we had a forensic lab where they studied just that. They studied people's eyewitnesses, being able to lie detection, that kind of thing.
Mm.
And they universally hated that show.
Poker
like-
face?
Yeah, as it turns out, they're talking about. Okay, so when I was in CI school, counterintelligence school, we actually took a course called neurolinguistics, and neurolinguistics is just like how your brain speaks through your body language. And this is the FBI came and taught this to us. They had a psychologist that worked for the FBI that came and talked to us, and it was actually I felt bad because when I got into psychology, I was like, oh, that's all pretty much bullshit. Like there's a couple things you do, but more of it has to do with idiosyncrasies. So like. So when you lie, the reason why lie detection tests or things like that, they test like galvanized skin response, which means kind of how you sweat, and then also people hesitate for just a second longer on lies, and we're talking like it's almost imperceptible. And these are all generalities. That's what sucks because we learn.
I heard on a podcast, Oh No, with Ross and Carrie, that like lie detector tests were maybe like 50% accurate. Like you kind of flip a coin and they'd be just as accurate.
They're not permissible in courts anymore because of all the research that came out showing that that's not true. Plus, we learned how to beat them in CI school, and it's classified. I can't tell you, but basically, it involves manipulating galvanized skin response in a way where you know how the test works and you know when to do these certain
Right.
things.
But even if you don't beat
yeah,
it, like it's just going to be wrong half the time.
yeah, it's a bad test. Or it's fine until you use Bayes' theorem, which is like signal detection. You also have to add in the misses.
Mhm.
So that's a different kind of math than some statistics that were used to approach it previously, which is like hypothesis testing. But anyway, this is too nerdy. But yeah, most of that stuff is bullcrap. Like, there's no reliable indicator for lying. People become nervous, and as everyone knows, nervousness comes out different ways.
Mhm.
Some people say you look right, whenever you think of something. That's rarely true. Like one of the things people often do, but you can train out of it, is look up when you're visualizing something, because for some reason our visual cortex is up near the front, and or where
So
our
for
eyes.
some reason, our eyes think we can look at that part of our brain.
Yeah, we kind of go but I think that's more of a behavioral thing, because not everyone does it, as it turns out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of research that's out there about that. Lie detection is shit. Eyewitness is shit. Memory recall is shit. Like, that's basically what this lab found in my undergrad. Don't rely well, actually, yeah, just most of that stuff is crap. It's sensational crap, and they got a lot of crap about it from the scholarly community. It's unfortunate because it was a really cool show. I thought it was awesome, and my wife loved it, and it all got ruined whenever.
Well, you just have to watch it the way I watch White Collar, where it's like, I just pretend that if it's something that like an 18th century nobleman would have been good at, like Neil's going to be an expert at for some reason.
Yeah, okay.
Like boxing or fencing or like whatever, like sailing, just whatever useless skill that would have taken like 20 years to master if that's all he did. Like, he's just good at all of it, and that's just a conceit you have to give the show to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's pretty much what you have to do, because I remember one in particular that was extra egregious was this girl like touched her ear like this, and he said right there, actually, she's lying. And they're like, why do you think that? And he goes, well, self-soothing technique. And I was like, yeah, that's actually not true. Self-soothing comes in all different kinds of ways. People do it different. Some people actually shake their legs back and forth, and that soothes them, like helps relieve some built up anxiety in a way that using kind of a behavior. But other people like rock back and forth. Some people whistle whenever they're nervous. Some people like pace. All it is anxiety, and it's your central nervous system cranking up, and you have all this extra energy being produced that you don't know what to do with, and so you're trained over time, either by yourself or by what's socially acceptable. Because like if I'm standing up picking my nose and that's how I get rid of my anxiety, then that's going to be selected against pretty quickly behaviorally. And so it's really a product of evolution more than it is like some neurolinguistic bullshit, like our brain talking through our bodies. It makes kind of sense anyway, because language is something that is relatively new, like in our species, and so lying is it's a social intricacy that
that's pretty.
Like, we haven't caught up with. Yeah, and language already, like language and the ability to use language to represent things, has fucked us up bad. Like, it's given us anxiety, it's given us depression. We can think a depression is looking into the past or the future and thinking poorly about it. But if you're in the present moment, like a dog or cat is, there's no fucking depression, because you're not set. Depression is hopelessness of the future, or hopelessness in the past, but typically the future. And you're thinking about an abstract, the future, right? But you can't tell the future. And same thing about anxiety. Like, anxiety is literally a system that's meant to, so whenever there's a shaking in the bush, we're supposed to, become pumped up, right? And you get all that cortisol pumped into you, and it's bad for your body, but it's going to save your life, so it's fine. But the funny thing is, we think forward and think about shaking of the bush as like a presentation or a meeting with an advisor or something, where you're going to get in trouble. And suddenly that shaking in the bush in the future becomes now, which is weird, right? Like, I am nervous now because of something in the future that might scare me.
Right.
And language is purely responsible for that, us being able to look like.
But language is also responsible for us being able to see the color blue, so it's got good things.
What?
Did you hear that Radio Lab a couple weeks ago?
I thought I listened to them all, but I guess not.
Okay, so this is really interesting. So they found out that ancient peoples couldn't see the color blue. And you're like, well, how would they know that? They're gone. It's like, how would we know what they could see?
Yeah,
so it all came from this guy who was reading Homer. You read the Iliad, right?
Uh-huh.
How does he describe like the ocean or the sky?
I can't remember.
He'll say things like the deep wine red of the ocean or the angry greens of the sky. Like he never uses blue to describe things that we as modern people would call blue. And so you're like, okay, well maybe maybe Homer was colorblind, or maybe they just maybe he just was being poetic. He's like just being like colorful in his descriptions. So they looked at ancient languages. They looked at ancient Greek. There was no word for blue. They looked at ancient Korean, no word for blue. Ancient Chinese, no word for blue. Mesopotamian, Indonesian, all these ancient languages, no word for blue. The only ancient language that had a word for blue was Egypt. I'll tell you why later. So they're like, well, does this mean that they couldn't see blue, or why would they not make a word for the color blue? And so the only way they could really test it, though, because those guys are all gone, was to find a group whose language doesn't have a color blue that's currently around today, so they could test them. And they found a tribe called the Himchas in the some rainforest somewhere, I think. And they brought them in, and they had them look at all these squares, and they were all green except for one blue square. And they said, find a square that's a different color. And they would just stare at it, and they couldn't tell you which one was a different color. Like, not which one is blue, because that would be a dumb question, just which one is different. And they're like, I don't know, they all look green to me. Like, they all look the same.
Wow.
But the same language has, like, 30-something words for green, like different colors of green. So they did the same test. We'll have to link in the show notes so you can see what I'm talking about. But they had the same test, all these green squares, and one was a slightly lighter shade of green. And I've showed this to my students. About half of them could eventually spot the one that was different. Some of them never could, but it took them a long time. It wasn't just right away like, oh, that one's blue. But those people, the Himchas, could just look at it and go, yep, there it is. That one's different. That one's different. That one's different. And so what they theorize is that like having a name for a color, sort of like, it's not that our brains have evolved differently to like not see blue, whereas ancient people couldn't see it, but having a word for it makes us notice the differences in colors.
Yeah. See, okay, that's
helps us
something
interpret things.
That's how I interpreted in cognitive. There was they found that women were more likely not
to
more
see
likely,
different colored shades, right?
Of pink and blue, and in particular. And then they were like, in guys, we don't seem to have anything above the girls. And they said, now this was probably an evolutionary advantage because women could, find blue and red colored berries. And I was like, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Why would you go to that? That's an unnecessary. That doesn't necessarily follow. I think what probably is the case is that women are typically more fashion forward than men. We're kind of Neanderthals. This is a generalized statement, but so you'd expect someone who's a fashion forward male to be the same thing. If you have a practice effect of discerning different colors and things, I think that would train the brain. And then I remember a couple of the girls were like, "No, we're just better." That's not really the same.
No, you were spot on, because like an art major will typically be able to say like, "Oh, look, that's off-white, that's eggshell, that's cream." Like they can spot the differences in different shades of better than someone who doesn't study the different words. Like once you get a word for a color, you start training your brain to really notice those differences more. So most ancient peoples couldn't see the difference between green and blue because they didn't have a word for blue, or difference between like deep purple and blue, for example, which is probably because the blue is not a color that shows up in nature very often.
Right, except in the sky.
Right, and even that's not really blue. It's a clear color. Like it's interesting. This linguist like told his kid like what color is the sky, and he never told her it was blue, and she's like, I don't know, it doesn't have a color. I don't know, it's white, it's red, and then like she eventually kind of settled on blue, but it's not like we're used to thinking of the sky as blue because we were told the sky is blue.
Huh.
But so back to the Egyptians though, they actually had a word for blue because they were the only ones with this certain dye, this lapis lazuli dye. They could actually make a blue color on their hieroglyphs, so they had to invent a word for blue to distinguish it.
Ah, that's cool.
Yeah, so language literally changes the way you see the world.
I believe it.
So it also fucks you up with depression, but it makes us better able to distinguish color. Yeah,
all that can be addressed. Actually, on our language episode, I think we talked about this relational frame theory, theory of how we prescribe meaning and perception both to and from language.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. But
so
cool.
yeah, we got a little off topic, but I hope that answered your question, Lou.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the email. If you guys want to email us, we are thegametheorypodcast@gmail.com. We're happy to field your questions or your criticisms, or you can call us out for any of the messed up science we tried to cover today.
Yeah, that'd be great. This is not our thing. But yeah, we also got an iTunes review, so thank you to Skidding Sand He says, "Purveyors of enlightenment, 5 stars." Purveyors of enlightenment. Wow, that's some hefty praise. He says, "After listening to the entire catalog, I feel I can finally give these two the 5-star treatment. The two hosts have a history which provides a near stream of consciousness or conscious delivery of gaming media news, video game experiences, and repartee. The heart of the podcast is the in-depth analysis portion, where the hosts break down video game and board game media into the separate realms of literature and psychology. As an aside, the effort I went through just to give this rating to this podcast speaks at length for it. I hate Apple, but I downloaded iTunes, recovered my old account name. Wow. Went through the bother of updating my email address from an old forgotten one just so I could retrieve a password, agreed to the iTunes agreement, found the podcast on the site, and finally wrote this review. Wow, I will promptly uninstall iTunes after this, but it was well worth it. To the one and only podcast I intend to review, 5 out of 5 would listen again."
Nice.
Wow,
that's you had the Steam review at the end. Perfect.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, geez, thanks, Getting Sand. That's awesome. I also hate Apple, but iTunes is like the behemoth for these podcast things.
Yeah, Apple is like, or iTunes is like the Microsoft of podcast media. So, ironically enough, it's not. I hate it too, but we appreciate your sacrifice. And for everyone else out there that's like, I would, but it's a hassle to log into iTunes. Think about what Skidding Sand just went through.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, really appreciate it. That helps us. I think we just moved past this random. Like when you look Game Theory podcast up, we're now number 3. Like on the pictures, we used to be behind some guy hugging a Pikachu or something. It was weird. So I appreciate it. Thanks. We're now above fat, weird, random guy hugging Pikachu.
This is the Pokemon molesting podcast.
We are your hosts. I don't even want to think about what kind of names we have. Anyway, yeah. So thanks a lot. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. Next week I think we're going to be talking about player motivation, or what was the other idea we had?
The survival horror.
Yeah, improvements
that could be improved.
Yeah, that I'm looking forward to that one too. Maybe we could bring on a guest for that one, maybe Tim or something. He's quite
definitely
the theorist.
thought it through.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot, guys. We really appreciate it. Hope you're enjoying this freaking cold weather we've been having.
Yeah. Hope you actually didn't play the drinking game, because we said the word time so much that you're probably in a coma right now.
Yeah. And if we didn't, time.
And you're dead.
Horrible eye. Yeah, with a horrible hangover. Great. Thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you next week.